This is my 1997 Honda Stepwgn. I recently had this thing imported from Japan and brought over to the United States. Today, I'll take you on a thorough tour of this Stepwgn and show you everything you're gonna need to know about it. Let's go.
So after I filmed everything, it turns out that the wind was causing an absolute audio issue, so I'll go ahead and narrate the rest of this video. So, this is my 1997 Honda Stepwgn. It's a four-wheel drive variant, it's an RF2 chassis code, and it's in this gorgeous cypress green color. I imported it from a friend of mine who also helped me import my Orthia here to the United States. So, what is a Honda Stepwgn? The Stepwgn is a 7 or 8 passenger van that has been made by Honda since 1996 and is still in production today. This is a first generation model as well. It's built on a similar chassis to a Honda CR-V, a Honda Civic, Honda Orthia, and Honda SMX. So you'll find a lot of interchangeable parts between all of those platforms. If you take a look at the screen here, you'll see that it is four-wheel drive. Like I mentioned, they also made a two-wheel drive variant, and all variants were powered by a B20B high compression twin cam 4-cylinder engine, mated to a 4-speed automatic column shifted transmission. There was no manual transmission available for the Stepwgn, but what do you expect? It's a Honda minivan. But what you might not expect for a van that's 25 years old is some cool features like this. It's got TV antennas on it, and that's because if we go to the inside, where all the fun is, you'll see that it's got a screen. Not only does it have TV, this one's also optioned with navigation as well. The interiors on these actually have a lot to offer. So looking at the doors, you can see the storage pockets. We'll get back to that in a second. It's got 2 glove boxes, your bottom one, and then your top one that has a fold-out TV tray, essentially. Then the navigation unit right here also houses the cassette player. It's AM, FM. You've got your air vents down here right below it. You also have a pass-through option for the center vent, which goes and blows air to the backseat passengers without you having to turn on the back unit. In the driver's footwell, you have your standard emergency brake and then your pull brake release. The cup holder up front is actually not really the best in the world. Most Japanese cars don't have full-size cup holders for like big gulp American cups, but it folds up nicely and you can fit water bottles and cans pretty easily. The stitching on the seats is actually really cool. It's like yellow, green, and red contrasting into the gray and dark gray. The cluster is very similar to what you would find in an American EK Honda Civic. It's got front power windows, and of course, there's none for the rear since it's sliding glass. You've also got the mirror adjustment. There was an option for power folding mirrors, which this one does not have. Here's the storage in the door pockets a little bit closer so you can see it. It's just about big enough for a phone, and then you've got this netting down here that fits like a tablet. The visors are actually really interesting. They're plenty big, but when you fold down the mirror on the passenger side, you can see it's very small, and the driver doesn't get a mirror at all. That's also pretty commonplace with Japanese cars. The backseat area is where things start to get interesting. We'll get back to the seat configuration here shortly, but you can see this is a 7-passenger variant. There was also an 8-passenger model as well. The air conditioning system back here is amazing. It's like an airliner where everybody gets their own vent. It's really cool. This one's also been outfitted with some aftermarket curtains, which I love using. You've got cup holders, one up front with an ashtray. That's very common for Japanese cars. One in the rear. The driver's seat armrest, forgot to mention that. Here's the seat folding up. You can see it makes a tray table and then an additional jump seat for a child. Honda makes it really easy to fold it up. You just pull a lever and then it goes back. The rear seat cup holder is broken, which is very common with these. And here is the analog backup camera. You can see here I've got a little bit of a view of the rear bumper and some that's behind it as well. This one was outfitted with a 12-volt socket in the rear. And here are all of the interior configurations. You've got like a conference setup, a lounge setup, and then of course it folds into a bed. Lastly, the trunk area is super nice. You've got all this netting back here that you can hang your groceries off of or put whatever you want back there so it doesn't roll around. And there you have it. Narration over. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Okay, so Honda Stepwgn. I've wanted one of these for a while. I have a Honda Orthia, 1996 Honda Orthia. Same color scheme, cypress green over the bottom half being this gray color from Honda. I really like that. My first car was a cypress green EK Civic, and it's just kind of something that I've wanted for a while to just add to the collection. So driving wise, this thing, it's a minivan. It's a Honda minivan on top of that. So you're not gonna get something that's super mega sporty, of course, but it is what it is. It's got about 130, 140 horsepower, so it knows how to get out of its own way. And I think it's like 3,400 pounds or something like that. So it's not a total heavyweight brute either. Driving down the road like normal, it's actually very comfortable and quiet. This is the thing that this has going for it. Since it's a van, your seating position is nice and high, and I've also got tons. I mean, like, my hand is on the roof. You can't even see it in the frame. I've got that much headroom with the thing, and everybody's got their own legroom too. Like, it's actually a very decent car to have passengers in too. Everyone that's been in here so far has absolutely loved the thing and how much room it has. And here you can really see that analog backup camera back there, and it's very handy when parking in very tight spots, or you want to back up right to like a parking bumper or something like that. That's actually close to what I see in my rear view mirror here. I don't even have to look behind me to see exactly where I'm at. I just look right there and it shows me exactly where I need to be parked. So it's a very handy thing to have. Funny enough, I used to have mud terrains on here when I first got it. Whenever it was imported in, it had some off-roading wheels and tires to it. They were actual like low profile mud terrains, essentially like a 65 series mud terrain. Totally wild and absolutely noisy as all get out, and very harsh, and they didn't balance right, and they were just not the thing for me. But a friend of mine that went to go pick up a Stepwgn just south of us here said, hey, I'll trade you, because the tires were brand new, and he had some used original ones and original wheels, and I'm a huge fan of the original OEM look, so traded them out and got these. So I mean, like, this is about as stock as this van could ever get. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is something I attempted to do a few weeks ago whenever I was reviewing the Honda Today, and that is a 0 to 60 pull. I'm going to merge safely onto the interstate to do this here, but the Today couldn't even hit 60 miles an hour, so let's see if this thing will do it. From a stop, 3, 2, 1, here we go. I'm floored. This thing has a decent red line. That was about $6 grand. 80 kilometers, 90, and there's 100. Okay, so that is 60 miles an hour on the dot. I used GPS earlier to confirm that that is the exact speed that we're going to. So right as soon as that read 100, that's like 62 kilometers an hour, 61. Give it the benefit of the doubt at like 1 or 2 miles an hour, but it should be very accurate. So yeah, this thing knows how to get out of its own way. Like I said, it's not fast. Don't think you're gonna win any races with this thing, but it does do a good job of merging onto the freeway. And now that we're at highway speed, something to note is that it is right around 3,000 RPM on this engine, doing about 65 miles an hour or so. So you're really not gonna have a really low cruising RPM with this thing, and that's pretty commonplace with a lot of Japanese vehicles. However, these engines are meant to kind of deal with those stressors over time, so you shouldn't be worried about that in the long run. Fuel economy in this thing, I'm averaging about 23, 24 miles per gallon, which for a minivan that carries 8 people, that's a pretty decent number. And you do have to remember here that you should fill up with premium fuel in these things, because the way that Japanese gas is versus American gas, it's much better to run the good stuff in these cars. Your car will thank you in the long run. Oh no, somebody in a Volkswagen Beetles broke down back there, but they've got some help from a mechanic here locally. And in the corners, man, this thing's got, I mean, it's a van, it's got a decent amount of body roll. That's another thing to be considerate of is your speed going through the corners, because this thing is not going to handle them like a go-kart, for sure. Yeah, all in all, at the end of the day, it feels like a Honda. I mean, that's a good thing though, if you're looking for something that's going to be reliable, quiet, inexpensive. That's the other thing, is that insurance on these things is like as low as $50 a month or way less. Like, you can go through State Farm and get some actual pretty decent rates. And we're talking full coverage for that amount too. We're not talking just liability, and all the way up to the value of the car. So while I'm still inside here and I don't have a bunch of wind noise to compete with, that's the last thing I want to talk about, is the pricing on one of these things. One like this one with 4-wheel drive, looking decent and not a bunch of flaws to it, you're going to be looking right around $11,000 to $12,000 US. And that's of course going to be before shipping and stuff like that. And go through your local dealer. I'm actually going to link right here a buddy of mine, and he'll be in the description below. He's the guy that sold me this one, and he's like the Stepwgn guy that I refer people to constantly for these cars. He's imported like a dozen of them or something like that, and everyone that's had one of these is super happy. They make great mail carriers too. On the cheaper end of things, if you're on a budget and you want to get one of these things still, you can typically look and find them in the secondhand market for like a 2-wheel drive model with not as many features, more miles, for around like $8,500, $9,000, and that's a very fair price for one of these. But I would definitely recommend spending just those few $1,000s more and getting one imported professionally, and they're going to make sure that it's all good for you to go, and you shouldn't have any worries driving one of these things, because like I said, at the end of the day, it's still a Honda. Parts for these things are also pretty easy to find too. About 80-85% of the drivetrain components for this thing can be sourced through your local auto parts stores here in North America. And since they can be cross-referenced with other Honda models like the CR-V, it makes the parts pretty inexpensive too. On a final note, I have to say these cars are incredibly rewarding to own, and having owned Japanese imported Hondas for the past couple of years, this one is just so supremely comfortable, and it's a lot more comfortable than a lot of the cars I've driven here too. And that's kind of what made me want to buy one of these things, is just that they're so easy to drive, and they're easy to go around town with, and they're easy to work on too. It's easy. The ownership experience is easy, driving experience is easy, replacing parts, also pretty easy stuff too. I mean, this thing is the full package. You can get it kitted out with a bunch of stuff. Honda has tons of accessories for these things, and hopefully I'll make a video in the future on that too, showcasing all the cool stuff you could have gotten and may find on one of these in Japan. Well, hey, I'm gonna end it right here. Be sure to subscribe if you aren't already, if you did enjoy the content. I really appreciate it. Like the video. Let me know if you have any other questions on this car down in the comments. I'll be answering every single comment that's down there. You guys can throw 10,000 comments at me. I will answer every single one of them, as long as it's a good question. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this today and learning about the Honda Stepwgn. Take care. We'll see you in the next one. Later.